we're back here again. We're going to go a little more detailed into these Brinly Hardy disc harrows. Now, what I have noticed is that when you run them in tandem, the back stables out the front. If you'll notice on the other video where we had a big heavy wet log laying on there, it was moving side to side. As it hits hard soil, it'll push itself away and dig in over there till it hits hard soil, then pushes back. It just inefficiently works, but it works. So with this, I only had to make 2 passes on the little garden that I showed you on the other video, and it had a very good till. I have looked at my other equipment, and I noticed that these dishes, when going this way, these should push it out, and these should cup to push it in. So I'm going to take these off, spin them around, and adjust them to where they're turning the soil and making an even path. Now, I'm going to take off all their weight brackets that they've added on for holding extra weight in there. I just think it's ugly. I've got something better to do. I've got to figure out what those big rods are off of. Might be able to use them for something really cool. But the other thing that I wanted you guys to take a look at, and I'm open for suggestions, I'm trying to figure out, if you'll notice, this red bar here is the original bar. This crossbar is original here. I'm sorry, I'm pointing at the railroad tie. This crossbar here is original. These brackets are the original. Under it, you'll notice that it's got a toothed adjustment system so that you can finely tune it. Over here, it's missing one. Not sure what happened, but like I said, I bought these off of a Craigslist ad for $100. You can see some of the discs are loose. That needs to tighten the nuts up. This one here, all the discs seem pretty stable. It turns freely. It's been greased. It has a little wobble there. I'll put the big crescent wrench on it, tighten that all down, because all you do is put a large wrench here, and you tighten that back up until you get enough pressure to keep them from wobbling and not, locking up, because they need to turn. So I had thought about selling this one. They've used railroad iron. It's a railroad track, and they've just drilled and bolted it to the disc harrow, and then they made themselves a little homemade box out of some kind of galvanized steel, and I guess that's to add extra blocks to it. But when I hook these things up and turn them properly so that it's turning out and then back in, when I hooked it up, it was hooked to this one. So the guys that are making all the extra weight brackets, they had made this thing, they had made this thing. Can't figure out what that's from. You guys know. One of you will tell me. Show me a picture of yours. Show me a video of yours. I want you guys to all upload some videos too. So what I'm going to do is this video, I'm going to take these off. I'm going to turn them around. Set it the way it's supposed to be. I'm going to adjust so that it covers the path that these are covering. These need to be closer together. These need to be closer together. As you can see, that slot right there is all the way out. So whenever you're making your pass, for a disc harrow to function properly, this disc, just flipped around, is almost touching this one. And what this does is it leaves you a smooth, tilled path when you go across it. Now, like I said, I've got the 85-pound steel plates that I can lay in these. That adds more than enough weight. But the way this thing pulls against itself, whenever you've got 2 of them running, it sinks the first one down, and the back one does need a little bit of weight. So I'll put a little weight on it and a little weight on the front, and it goes in the ground. It does a great job. Let me take these things apart for you. So these broke loose real easy after I put a little oil on them, and these seem to be pretty tight, and I'm going to leave them like they are for right now. I want to get 4 new bolts. These are so old and rusty. I gave this one a little twist right here, and it seems like it's going to spin the whole hex nut down in the bottom of the carriage bolt. So also looking at this, I'm noticing one other thing. This bar goes through the frame and turns up. This one turns down. I'm believing that this should be flipped over so that it will give the proper turn and weight distribution. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get 2 new carriage bolts, well 3, because this is just a nut and a bolt, so I can tell somebody's had this off before, because this has got an old hardware store nut and bolt, and that's all there is. So you see what you have here is you have this extra piece that comes down. It goes down and under to fit the sleeve hitch. Theoretically, you're supposed to be able to pick this whole unit up with the handle, and basically I ordered on eBay a new handle because the cast iron down here in the bottom of mine was cracked, so it never did give a proper lift. And then I found out it didn't have the helper spring, so on eBay I found a helper spring, and I went through all of those videos telling everybody what all I've done. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to tighten this one down with these 2 new carriage bolts here, and I'm going to take it to the garden. So like I said, in theory, you're supposed to be able to pick this piece of equipment up with the sleeve hitch, and I just did. So let's take her to the garden. Well, unfortunately, the garden is still very wet. We had a rain just a few days ago, so it's still very, very wet. So what I was going to do is just drop it down here beside of the garden and let it run. We got her in low 1. Slow her down a little bit. Pull the variator back. That's a fast tractor, isn't she? Yeah, I'm suspecting that I was right on that, because maybe in softer soil it would dig the middle in, but I believe this needs to be flipped over to where it's curved up instead of down to give a level operation. But if you'll notice this rigidity, now with 250 pounds on the disc, it engages these now. I don't know, there may be a ½ inch to an inch of difference between this one and that one. I'm going to play with it. We'll see what happens. But as always, I pray that you and yours have a blessed day. Thanks for viewing. Like, subscribe, follow us here on YouTube. I'll keep playing with my toys. Keep sharing ideas and tips. And for the guy that got a set of these disc harrows for $5, I'll give you 10 times your money for them right now today. All right, y'all have a good one. Thank you. I'm tractor surfing. One additional tip. I was careful when I did this, but whenever you do put these bolts in, I use a ratcheting wrench. Be sure to keep your hand behind the wrench so that you don't hit these blades, because I'd hate to hear that one of my YouTube followers or viewers had gotten sick with tetanus and died. You know, that's like Thoreau at Walden's Pond, you know, the author of that book that wrote The Cabin for Free. But anyway, out of all the things he had done, he died from tetanus, from pulling nails out of boards. But as you can see, it's digging in pretty good. It would have never done that with just a single harrow behind it. And I don't know, even where I didn't, you can see where I stood on it, and you can see it was even digging in all the way back here where we started, where I wasn't standing on it. So I think it's 100% better. All right, bye now. Y'all have a Merry Christmas. See you next year.